Hey everybody, if you thought that I was actually playing drums in the Salzburg Cathedral, you've come to the wrong video. I apologize. However, this is about playing drums in the Salzburg Cathedral. This is an amazing building, and recently, if you saw my previous video, I was able to come into this room and capture some impulse responses in 360 nonetheless. So I was using ambisonic microphone to do this. It's really amazing. And so I can take the sound of this space and bring it into Logic and play drums with it. So that's what this video is about. I want to talk to you a little bit about the process because I think that I want to just explain how I made my decisions of where to capture things in here. I didn't have a ton of time. We were up against the bells tolling, and if you've ever been to the downtown part of Salzburg, the old town, there are a lot of churches and a lot of bells, and so we're having to go in between them. And so we were up against a number of things. This is the main sanctuary of this cathedral. It has 7 pipe organs, can fit like 900 people. And I went and recorded the impulses in 3 places, playing or popping the balloon, which is what I had to use for this particular setup, from the very front. So I would stand up here by the front, and then I popped balloons in the middle. First of all, I wanted symmetry, so I did it in the middle in terms of left to right, but then I also did it in the middle of each of these rows of chairs. So one here, one in the middle of the middle rows of chairs, and then one in the rear by the rear rows of chairs. And so I went through all of these different places. I always am trying to figure out, what a room might sound like to the people who worship here in these type of churches. You can't really go to the sides where the chairs are because an asymmetrical or an off-balance impulse is usually the one rule I don't break. However, I do want to be kind of in the place where the people are sitting. I'm not as interested in testing the room for an exact scientific measurement. I'm interested in the experience that people have in a place. So we popped the balloon up in the front. We also did a balloon pop from this raised lectern area over along the back side because sometimes people stand up there and do things. I would have liked to have popped balloons from each of the organ stands, but time just didn't permit it in this specific trip. Now, I'm hoping to make it back to Salzburg sometime in the next year for a very special project, which I'm still working on the details with the Salzburg Festival. But for now, I just did in these 3 locations, and we got multiple pops just to make sure we were good, no external noise, etc. So once I did that, let me open up my other folder here. You'll see a little bit disorganization, but I'm still working on exactly what we're doing here. Number 042 was the one from this first location, and I used another app because it comes with the microphone. Let me pull this other app open from Zoom. So I use the Zoom H3 VR, which is a really interesting ambisonic microphone. And it's partially interesting because of how flexible you can use the recordings made from it. So here's the Zoom Ambisonics player. It's loading up right now. There we go. So there it is. This is the one. 042 Ambisonics recording. And so I went through and I used this first. The straight 361 I can load right into Logic using a third-party reverb. But if I want to use the default Logic ones, I could do stereo, binaural, or surround. And so I've got those all already exported. Let's see if I can see those here, the exports. So the front binaural location is one of them, front stereo, and it looks like I have not done the surround yet. Cool, but I could have. So we have those right there. So I took the recordings that I made with that microphone and I've loaded them into this little utility that comes with a Zoom recorder. And you can export the stereo binaural 5.1 or just use the straight ambisonics 360 version. And I did some listening tests, some basic listening tests with one of my classes at the university on headphones. And the binaural one is the one we landed on as having one of the more interesting sounds. And I'll play that for you in a second. But we also did the stereo one just to do a comparison. And so after I export it from this, then I have to go into Logic, and I believe I have this set up here. Let's see if it's recently, not recent enough. So I'll open this up for you. And we'll see, Extreme, Salzburg stuff, and IRs, and the Salzburg IR prep session. And we'll not close that one. We'll leave the other project open because we'll come back to it in a second. So now I have this, and I went through each of the different files then, and here's the actual 360 one that I used from Noisemakers, a really nice French company. And so that has the 360 version loaded up. Let's zoom out for a sec because I don't know. Here's the, I did do a 5.1 prep, but I don't know if I've actually cut it up yet. So there's the binaural prep and there's the stereo prep. So these two are the ones. Let me confirm I have sound being recorded for you right this second. Okay, we do. And I'm going to play just the balloon pop of the stereo. Oop. We jumped ahead. Thank you. Cycle location. And then I'll play the binaural one as well here. Okay, so it looks like we might be going through, no, we're just going stereo out. The binaural one sounds great. It just has a lot of really interesting stuff in the left and right field. And so that's the one, but I'm going to go back now to the other project. So I cut them up, exported them, just that little clip, and that became my source impulse, which then I could use in other places. So we'll come back into here, and as soon as that flips over, there we go. Let's just load up a dummy track for a second, and I'll show you the process. Now I'm going to put this example directly on a track. Usually I would use busing and things like that, but for now we're just going to do just right on the track. And let's start with a piano. So let's just hear what this sounds like with a nice Steinway piano. Get my keyboard ready. Get my keyboard ready here. That's without the reverb, but it has some other effects on it. So let's put the actual Space Designer stereo, and I'm going to load up a preset, Salzburg Cathedral. And this is with the binaural. It's a nice long reverb, huh? So now that's just a wet signal that doesn't have any of the dry piano. And that's how this often works when you do balloon popping, because you're getting the direct sound from the balloon as well as the tail. You can often do this with just the wet knob. And you actually get, in some ways, perhaps more true to the balloon pop. But we can always... If we want to create a little bit of a less realistic sound but still use the reverb, we can adjust the dry up and the wet down. But we have all kinds of variations we can do with that to get the exact sound from this that we want. Just to let you hear this, let's load the stereo version. And let's see. Stereo front location. I think this is the right one. And then back to the binaural. So, I mean, if you're listening close, there is a difference. And I love the binaural version. So now, playing drums in the Salzburg Cathedral. That's what we have here. I've got this sent out to bus 3. And on bus 3, we have the binaural front location in the church. So let's solo this for a second. We'll go back to the beginning. Is this reverb too big for drums? I'm going to say no. I don't think it is. I think that it probably is in most cases. But with the right leveling, which would be, close miking on a drum kit in the front position there, and then having some nice room mics, you could actually do something similar in the actual place. Now, they're never going to let me record drums in the Salzburg Cathedral, I don't think. It's like, even though it's a tourist destination, it's an active Catholic church. And I don't know if they're going to let me just do any old recording session there. I was able to pop balloons with the permission of the Archdiocese of Salzburg, but that doesn't necessarily translate into pop music. So, second best, put it on the tracks that we have.
Inside my mind, the quiet is deafening. The silence is messing with me. The world keeps on spinning. My vision keeps on dimming.
And the voice is going through it too. So, I mean, that's a really long tail for this type of song. But I think it's really kind of cool to be able to do that, to be able to put these instruments in there. So again, the steps, once you have the Space Designer loaded up, you just load the impulse response and you go to where that file is, that balloon pop, and it loads in. We can, I think there are some things we can do here in terms of adjusting this, because, we can adjust the attack. I think we can come through and change a pre-delay. We have some options in here that I think are very useful. Let's go back to the drummer for a second and do that one. Because I want to hear... I want to see what we had those things set up at on there. So pre-delay, attack, those were already all set to 0. Okay, it's just the voice had a little different setting on it, which is like, you can do that. You can actually change some stuff around and make that work a little bit differently. You can also edit them differently. So I could have come through and set, cut off the very initial part of that. So it's just the tail. You can see a little bit of the end curve there from the balloon pop, and just go to the reverb tail, or you can resynthesize this. There are some researchers doing resynthesis of impulse responses. I find that if you just, sometimes cut it at the tail, then you have a little bit smoother, and it works really well. So some different options. I think they're all pretty interesting when you come down to, because now we can take this sound and use it in different ways. So because I put this out on an aux channel and have it bust, it means I can come down and send different things to it. So this one is going to it, this channel, this other initial part is going to bus 3. The drums are going to bus 3. The vocals are in a stack track, so they have one impulse response going for all the vocals together, and it looks like that's it. I don't think, here's the input to bus 3 right over here, so this is the actual reverb for it. You can do it different ways and achieve the same thing. With reverb, the timing's a little bit more forgiving than some of the other bussing and things we do, but I think it works out pretty well. Okay, just wanted to walk you through this because I think it's cool to be able to put my drum kit in the Salzburg Cathedral and have those acoustics around it. This is, in my opinion, one level of this. Using the 360 version, where I use ambisonics to do this and put the drums in that, it adds a whole nother level of realism. It's just not something I can easily showcase on YouTube. It's possible, but it certainly is. It's harder for most people to experience it. So at some point here in the near future, I want to do a video where I showcase the 360 version of that first order ambisonics. Today is not that day, but come back and check it out for future ones. So thanks for watching. Hope this all made sense. And there is this thing, if you're really interested in the impulses, check out the Facebook group link in the description. Once I get to 1,000 members of that Facebook group, I'll be letting people have access to some of these impulses. So it's worth checking out if you want to go check out the group and get on there so you can be notified when those impulses are available. We're almost at 500 members of the group, halfway there. When we get to 1,000, then we're going to drop a couple of these impulses into people's laps so they can experiment with them. Anyway, that's it. Talk to you later.